Chapter 1. "You look terrible," Caleb says from somewhere behind me, which is a great way to start a homecoming. I drop my suitcase on the gravel parking lot of Brooks Landing Marina and turn around. My brother's standing on the dock with a wrench in one hand and a look on his face that says he's been waiting to say that since I texted him from the highway. He's also wearing the same faded blue shirt he had on the last time I visited, which tells me either nothing has changed or he only owns one shirt. Both are equally possible. "Thank you," I say. "My phone is at 4% and I drove 3 hours and then here to save your marina, so maybe hold the commentary." "Our marina." "Sure." I grab the suitcase handle. The wheels catch on a crack in the gravel and the whole thing tips sideways. I write it with more force than necessary. "Our marina that you called me about in a panic at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday." I wasn't panicking. "Caleb, you used the word doomed 4 times. He opens his mouth, closes it, points the wrench at me in a way that is not an argument, but is also not a concession. I take it as a win and drag my suitcase toward the main building, which looks exactly the same as it always has. Sun-faded wooden sign, screen door that doesn't fully close, 2 hanging baskets of petunias that my mother replants every May, regardless of what is happening financially or emotionally in her life. The petunias are, as far as I can tell, the most reliable thing in Cedar Cove Lake. The lake itself is right there, flat and blue through the tree line, and I make the mistake of looking at it. I always make that mistake. It catches me the same way it did when I was 8, when I was 17, when I left for the city and told myself I wouldn't miss it. It is annoyingly beautiful, and it knows it. I look away. I have a plan. The plan involves spreadsheets, a marketing strategy, vendor coordination for the summer festival, and absolutely no emotional reckoning with the lake or anything associated with it. "Hey, Brooks." The voice comes from my left, and my whole body registers it before my brain does, which is not ideal. Jack Wilder is crouching beside the second dock, replacing a board with the easy, unhurried focus of someone who has never once rushed anything in his life. He's older, which I knew, obviously, because time passes, but knowing it and seeing it are different things. He's broader than I remember. His hands are the same. I notice this immediately and find it very irritating. "Jack," I say, and my voice comes out exactly as flat as I want it to. He looks up. He doesn't smile right away, which is somehow worse than if he had. He just looks at me with the steadiness he's always had, like he's got nowhere else to be and nothing to prove about it. "When did you get in?" "About 45 seconds ago." "Long drive?" 3 hours. "You take the scenic route or the highway?" "Jack," I say, "what are you doing to my dock?" He holds up a nail. "Third board from the left was rotting through. Someone was going to step through it." That someone was probably going to be me. "That's why I'm fixing it now." He sets the nail and drives it in with 2 clean strikes of the hammer. "You're welcome." I stand there for a second with my suitcase tilted at an angle and my phone dying in my pocket, and the lake glittering in my peripheral vision like it's trying to make a point. Jack goes back to the board. He doesn't look at me again, which is somehow still worse. "I have a whole plan," I say, mostly to myself. "I heard," he says. "Spreadsheets." I look at Caleb. Caleb is examining the wrench with great interest. "You told him about the spreadsheets." "He asked what you were bringing," Caleb says. "A laptop and a marketable skill set was the correct answer." "He seemed worried you'd show up with a PowerPoint and a rebranding strategy." "I have both of those," I say. "They're in the laptop." Jack makes a sound that might be a laugh. It's very quiet, and I refuse to find it charming. I grab my suitcase and haul it up the porch steps before I can say anything else, because the plan is to be professional and efficient and completely unaffected, and I've already been here 4 minutes, and I'm already at about a 65% on the unaffected scale, which is not a great start. My mother meets me at the screen door with a hug that smells like sunscreen and coffee. She holds on for a second longer than necessary, which tells me she's more worried about the marina than she's letting on by phone. "You didn't have to come all this way," she says. "You called me twice in 1 week." "I was just updating you." "Mom, you sent me a photo of the boiler." She pats my cheek. "There's coffee inside, and I made the room up. Jack fixed the ceiling fan." "Great," I say. "Jack fixes everything." She gives me a look that I do not respond to. I take my suitcase inside. The room is the same room I grew up in, which is comforting and slightly destabilizing at the same time. Same quilt, same window that sticks when the humidity is high, same view of the dock from the bed, which I realize immediately is going to be a problem because Jack is still out there, working, and I can see him from here without even trying. I sit on the edge of the bed and plug my phone in and stare at the ceiling fan until it occurs to me that Jack fixed the ceiling fan, and I need to stop associating every object in this house with Jack Wilder. My phone buzzes. It's Talia. "Did you get there?" she says before I finish saying hello. "I got here. And? And nothing. I'm here to work." "Did you see him?" "Talia. Lena." I stretch out on the quilt and look at the ceiling. Outside, I can hear the occasional tap of a hammer. "He was fixing a dock board." "Was he shirtless?" "He was not shirtless. He was wearing a shirt and using a hammer and being extremely steady and competent, and I said approximately 12 words to him and walked away." "You're still in love with him." "I am not. You just described a man hammering a nail like it was a scene from a movie. I described a home repair task." "With feeling," Talia says. I sit up. Through the window, the dock is quiet. Jack is gone, or at least not visible, which is an improvement to my general functioning. I'm here for the festival. 6 days. Get the vendor contracts in order, run the social media campaign, save the family business. That's the list. You and your lists. Lists work. "Lena, he almost kissed you on that dock 6 years ago, and you have thought about it every single time you've been back since. That is not a work problem. That is a you problem." "He pulled away," I say. "He decided not to. That tells me everything I need to know." "Or it tells you he was scared." "Same outcome." "That is not the same. Talia, I'm not doing this. I came here to work, I'm going to work, and I am going to be completely fine and professional and unaffected, and when the festival is over, I'm going back to the city." There's a pause. I can hear Talia deciding whether to push it, and then deciding against it, which is either respect or strategy. With Talia, it's usually strategy. "Okay," she says. "But if he looks at you the way you described 6 years ago, I want a full report." He looked at me like I was a person he recognized. It was fine. "You said it with italics," Talia says, and hangs up. I put the phone down on the quilt and look at the ceiling, and tell myself, very clearly and calmly, that Talia is wrong, and I am fine, and this is a professional visit with a clear objective and a defined timeline. Then I pick the phone back up and open my Notes app, because the thing about having a clear objective is that it helps to write it down. It helps to make it concrete. It helps to give yourself rules when you know your own track record for bad decisions in proximity to certain people. I type, "the no kissing list." I stare at it. Then I type the first rule. 1. Do not kiss Jack Wilder. I read it back. It is a good rule. It is a sensible rule, born from experience and self-awareness, and the memory of standing on that dock in the dark at 23 years old, close enough to feel the warmth off his arm, and watching him take a step back like I was something to be careful about. I am not doing that again. I am not standing somewhere quiet with Jack Wilder while something almost happens and then doesn't. I have a plan. I have a festival to save. I have a family business that needs actual help, and not a daughter who spends her week mooning over a man who made his feelings perfectly clear by not acting on them. I stare at the note. Then, because apparently one rule is not enough to satisfy whatever instinct is currently running my decision-making, I add a second line. 2. Especially do not kiss Jack Wilder on the dock. Chapter 2. The clipboard is the first problem. I have one with color-coded tabs and a laminated checklist, and the look on Caleb's face when I pull it out at 7:15 in the morning tells me he is going to make it a whole thing. "That's a lot of clipboard," he says. This is an appropriate amount of clipboard for a festival with 14 vendor slots, a boat parade, and a sound system that apparently runs on optimism and extension cords. The extension cords are fine. "Caleb, I found 3 of them duct-taped together behind the bait shed." He points at me. "That solution has worked for 2 years. That solution is a fire hazard and a liability waiver waiting to happen." I write it down on the clipboard. He watches me write it down. He looks slightly betrayed. The marina in the morning is a different thing from the marina at dusk. It smells like lake water and engine oil, and the coffee my mother started before either of us were up. And the light comes in low and flat off the water, the kind that makes everything look cleaner than it actually is. I've walked these docks 1,000 times. I know exactly which boards creak and where the gravel gets soft near the east ramp, and how the second dock lists slightly to the left when the water level drops in August. I also know, without looking, that Jack Wilder is already out here. I look anyway. He's at the far end of the main dock with a toolbox and a stack of replacement boards, working with the same unhurried efficiency he had yesterday. He hasn't looked up. I look back at my clipboard. "Vendor tent layout," I say to Caleb. "I'm thinking we move the food trucks to the north end and put the craft booths along the water. Better foot traffic, better sightlines from the main stage." "The food trucks have always gone along the water." "The food trucks along the water block the view of the lake from the stage, which means anyone watching the boat parade is staring at the back of a pulled pork trailer." Caleb opens his mouth, closes it. This is a thing he does when he knows I'm right but hasn't fully committed to admitting it. "That's not where the power hookups are," he finally says. "We run a line from the east panel. It's 30 feet. That's 30 feet of cable." "That is 30 feet of cable, yes." From the far end of the dock, without looking up. "The east panel can handle the load. I checked it last week." I write that down on the clipboard too, since it's useful information and I am a professional. It has nothing to do with the fact that Jack remembered to check the panel, which is exactly the kind of thing he does that makes it very difficult to maintain a reasonable level of irritation with him. "Fine," Caleb says, and walks away toward the bait shed with the energy of a man who has decided to let someone else make decisions and resent it from a distance. I take this as progress. I work my way down the dock, checking off items. The rental kayak rack needs 2 new straps. The sign for the boat launch is faded past legibility. The picnic tables near the main pavilion are missing 3 bolts between them. I sit down on one to check my notes, and it wobbles in a way that is genuinely alarming. "Table's been like that since April," Jack says. He's moved down the dock. He's maybe 20 feet away now, fitting a new board into place with the careful attention he gives everything. "Did anyone write it down?" Caleb said he'd get to it. Caleb's method of getting to things is to wait until they become a crisis and then fix them with whatever is nearby. Usually works, Jack says. It works until it doesn't. He lines up the board and drives a nail in clean. You're not wrong. I add the table to the list. Jack goes back to the dock. I move to the storage shed to count the folding chairs, counting them twice after coming up 7 short the first time. It turns out it's real, which means I need to source 7 more chairs by Friday morning. A small, solvable problem that I find oddly satisfying. I'm pulling the shed door shut when Jack appears at my elbow. You take your coffee black now, he says. I look at him. What? You used to add cream, 2 sugars. Now you drink it black. He nods toward the mug I've been carrying since I came out here. Your mom mentioned it. My mom mentioned my coffee order? She was making a pot and said to make it strong because you drink it black now, and she didn't understand when that happened. I look down at the mug. It happened when I started working with a client who kept scheduling 8 a.m. calls. Cream and sugar stopped being worth the time. That's a sad reason to change how you take your coffee. It's a practical reason. Same thing sometimes. He says it without any particular weight, just states it and moves on. And I write 7 folding chairs on my clipboard with slightly more force than necessary. We spend the next hour in the same orbit. He works the dock, I work the grounds, and we cross paths enough times that pretending he isn't there stops being a viable strategy. He tells me the north side electrical box has a loose connection. I tell him the rental boat numbers are painted over on 3 of the kayaks. He points out that the stage platform has a soft spot in the center that will need bracing before anyone puts a sound system on it. I add it to the list. He doesn't ask to see the list, which is either courtesy or indifference, and I don't ask which. Your marketing plan, he says around 9 o'clock. He's straightening up from the dock, rolling his shoulders back. Caleb showed me the pitch deck you sent him last week. He told me he didn't read it. He didn't. I did. It's good, Lena. The social campaign, the press outreach, the vendor tiering. It's actually really good. I look at the clipboard. Thank you. You built something real in the city. I'm aware. I'm just saying it. I write down stage platform, center brace, and I keep my eyes on the paper. The thing about Jack saying something like that in the straightforward way he says everything is that it lands, and I don't want it to land. And it lands anyway. The signage is a disaster, I say, and walk toward the pavilion. The signs are stacked against the back wall of the pavilion in what I can only describe as a structural gamble. Someone has arranged them in a leaning tower that suggests deep optimism about the laws of physics. I set my clipboard on the nearest table and start pulling them out one by one, checking the condition. Most of them are fine, a few need repainting. The big welcome banner at the bottom of the stack is in better shape than I expected. You'll want to start from the bottom, Jack says from behind me. I know how stacks work. You're pulling from the middle. I'm checking the middle ones first because the bottom ones are usually fine and the top ones are... The stack shifts. It goes fast. 1 second, I'm holding a sign that says, "Welcome to Cedar Cove Annual Lake Fest," in cheerful blue letters. And the next, the whole pile is going sideways, and I'm stepping back to get clear of it, and my heel catches the edge of the pavilion step, and I am, briefly, not in contact with the ground in any intentional way. Jack catches me. 1 hand at my waist, 1 hand closing around my arm, and he pulls me back against him before I finish falling. For a second, the only thing I'm aware of is that his hands are very steady and very warm, and I am pressed against his chest in a way that my nervous system has decided is extremely significant. The signs hit the floor with a noise like a small disaster. We stand there. He doesn't let go immediately. I don't move immediately. The lake is doing its usual thing in the background, completely unbothered. You okay? He says, close to my ear. Fine, I say. He lets go. I step forward. I pick up my clipboard from the table. I look at the scattered signs on the pavilion floor, and then I write something down. A reliable distraction when I need something to do with my hands. Told you, Jack says. He picks up the nearest sign and sets it against the wall, very carefully, from the bottom. You told me nothing. You said start from the bottom, which is not a warning. That's a suggestion. You're welcome. I carry my clipboard to the far end of the pavilion and spend several minutes doing a very thorough inspection of the folding table situation, which does not require my full attention, but gets it anyway. I don't add anything to the official list, but I open my notes app while Jack is stacking signs with his back to me, and I type 2 new lines under the existing ones. Rules exist for a reason, and that reason just caught me with both hands, and I felt it in my entire skeleton. 3. Do not let Jack Wilder catch you. 4. Do not notice that Jack Wilder has hands. I read them back. They are good rules. They are rules born from very recent and specific experience. I put my phone in my pocket and pick up the clipboard and turn around. Jack is standing at the pavilion table. He's looking at a small piece of paper, and I realize with a cold, sinking clarity that it is the page I tore off my clipboard earlier when I rewrote the vendor layout. I had written the first 2 rules on the back of it before transferring them to my phone and left it on the table when I went for the signs. He looks up at me. His expression is entirely too composed. Do not kiss Jack Wilder, he reads. Especially do not kiss Jack Wilder on the dock. He tilts the paper slightly. This is a list. That's mine. It has rules. Give me the paper, Jack. You made rules about me. I make rules about everything. It's called being organized. Give me the paper. He holds it out. I take it. He is still looking at me with that steady, careful attention, and there is something at the edge of it that I refuse to examine in a pavilion in the middle of the morning with 14 vendor slots still to confirm. Lena, he says. I have chairs to source, I say, and walk out into the sun. Chapter 3. You're doing the inspection, Caleb says, handing Jack the clipboard I made, which is a betrayal I intend to address at a later time. Both of you. Pontoons gassed up. Check the rental boats, the buoy markers, and the festival signage along the North Cove. I can do it alone, I say. You don't know where the North buoys are anymore. I grew up on this lake, Caleb. The North buoys moved after the storm 2 years ago. He points at Jack. He knows where they are. He points at me. You have the list. He walks away, which is his signature move, and I am left standing on the dock, holding a life vest and a complicated feeling. Jack is already on the pontoon. He has the engine idling and his sunglasses on, and the particular expression of someone who has decided not to comment on anything, which I find more irritating than if he'd said something. I step onto the boat. He doesn't offer a hand. I don't want one. Ready? He says. Obviously, I say. We pull away from the dock into open water, and the marina shrinks behind us into something small and manageable, which is the thing about the lake I always forget until I'm out on it. The way the shore gets quiet, the way everything that felt urgent a minute ago starts to look like a postcard from a distance. I consult my checklist. It is thorough and organized, and gives me something to look at that isn't Jack. Rental boat 2 has a faded number, I say. We noted that yesterday. Already called about the paint. It's coming Thursday. I put a check next to it. The buoy markers along the south end were fine when I walked the dock this morning. North ones are the concern. There's one that's listing after the last wake from the ski boats. It'll confuse the parade route if we leave it. How far out? 10 minutes, maybe 12. I write that down. The lake opens up ahead of us, flat and very blue, and the only sound is the engine and the water moving under the hull. A heron lifts off from the reeds along the eastern bank and disappears into the tree line, and I watch it go because it gives my eyes somewhere to be. You miss it? Jack says. The lake? Any of it. I look at the water. I didn't let myself. He doesn't say anything to that. He adjusts course slightly, reading something in the water I've already forgotten how to read, and the boat swings north. The city was good, I say, because the silence has started to feel like an answer I didn't give. The work was good. I was good at it. I know you were. But it's the kind of good where you're always performing it. You have to keep proving the same thing over and over to the same people, and they reset every Monday like none of it counted. I stop. I hadn't planned to say that. Anyway, Jack says, in a tone that means he heard all of it. The listing buoy is exactly where he said it would be. I make the note while he cuts the engine and reaches over the side to check the anchor line, testing the tension with both hands. The buoy bobs, orange and salt-stained and stubborn about its tilt. It needs a new anchor weight, he says. I'll bring one out tomorrow. I'll add it to the supply list. Already on mine. I look at him. He's still looking at the buoy. I write it down anyway because it is my list and I am keeping it. We motor along the north bank toward the picnic cove, checking the festival signage posted along the tree line. 2 signs are crooked. One has a corner pulled back from the weather. Jack has a staple gun in the supply box without being asked, which is either impressive or extremely irritating, and probably both. He cuts the engine when we reach the cove. The water here is sheltered and very still. It smells like pine and warm rock, and the particular green smell that belongs to the shaded parts of the lake. And I know this smell the way I know my own name, from somewhere before memory starts. Last sign's up on that post, Jack says. He nods toward the far edge of the cove, where a wooden post leans slightly into the water. I'll need to get close. He steers in. The cove is narrow and the water is glassy, and the boat rocks once, gently, when we pass through the shadow of the overhanging pines. I'm reaching for the post with the sign in my hand when the wake from a distant ski boat rolls through, slow and rolling, bigger than it looked from the open water. The pontoon tips, not dramatically, just enough. I grab for the rail and miss, and Jack's hand closes around my arm before I've fully registered that I'm off balance, and then the boat levels out, and I'm standing very close to him, with one hand on his forearm and his other hand at my elbow, and about 4 inches of lake air between us. The water goes still again. He doesn't step back. I don't either. I'm aware of the cove around us, the way the light comes through the pines and sits on the water in pieces, and the fact that this is exactly the kind of situation that Rule 6 was designed to prevent. Jack looks at me. Then his gaze drops, just for a second, and comes back up. The radio on the dash crackles. You two find the north buoy yet? Caleb's voice, flat and practical and perfectly timed, fills the whole cove like he's standing on the boat with us. I step back. Jack reaches for the radio. Found it, he says. Needs a new anchor weight. We're in the cove finishing the signage. Copy that. Bring the boat back by noon. I've got a rental group at 1. Copy, Jack says, and sets the radio down. We don't discuss it. I pick up the sign. He holds the post steady while I staple it into place, and we motor back to the marina with the engine doing all the talking, and I stare at the checklist and do not think about the 4 inches of lake air, or the way he looked at my mouth, or the fact that 6 years ago, on a different dock in different light, he did the exact same thing before stepping away. He stepped away then, too. I know how this goes. The marina dock is busy when we get back, and I tie off my side of the pontoon without waiting for help, and carry the clipboard inside, and sit down at the picnic table farthest from the water, and open my notes app. I add 2 lines. 5. No kissing near boats. 6. No kissing because of lake lighting, which is legally manipulative. I read them back. They are solid rules. They are rules with very specific origins, and I stand by every word. I call Talia. She picks up on the second ring. Tell me something happened. Nothing happened. Lena. We were on a boat. There was a wake. He steadied me. Caleb called on the radio. A long pause. Caleb is the villain of this story. Caleb is the reason I still have functioning emotional defenses. He looked at your mouth, didn't he? I don't answer. He absolutely looked at your mouth. She makes a sound that is somewhere between delight and outrage. Lena, maritime law is very clear on this. When a man looks at your mouth on a boat, you are legally obligated to investigate further. That is not a law. It's implied in the Geneva Convention. It is absolutely not. I'm just saying, the lake lighting alone is admissible evidence that something is happening. You cannot be expected to resist lake lighting. No jury would convict you. I added it to the list, I say. Lake lighting is now explicitly banned. You added lake lighting to the no kissing list? Rule 6. She is quiet for exactly 1 second. You are the most unhinged, organized person I have ever met, and I mean that with my whole heart. Thank you. What are you going to do? Source 7 folding chairs and confirm the vendor tent permits, I say, and not think about it. Extremely healthy, Talia says. Genuinely. A masterclass in processing. I tell her I have to go, which is true, and she tells me to stop writing rules and start making mistakes, which I ignore. And I hang up and sit with my phone in my hand and the lake doing its flat, indifferent thing in front of me. I'm still sitting there when I hear voices from around the side of the bait shed. Caleb's first, low and slightly impatient. She's got her city shoes on and a color-coded clipboard, and she's already moved half my vendor plan. The vendor plan is better now, Jack says. That's not the point. What is the point? A pause. She's going to leave again, Jack. She always does. She shows up, fixes everything, and then there's a better offer and she's back on the highway with her hazards on. I don't move. A bird calls from somewhere in the pines. The lake keeps going. Maybe, Jack says. Or maybe she's been trying to figure out where she belongs for 6 years, and she keeps coming back here every time she needs to remember. Caleb makes a noise that isn't quite a response. She built something real, Jack says. She could build it from anywhere, including here. A beat. Maybe she never stopped belonging at the lake, Caleb. Maybe she just needed someone to stop acting like she was already gone. The voices move away toward the dock. I sit with my phone in my lap and the checklist on the table in front of me, and the lake very wide and very quiet beyond the railing. I don't add anything to the list. I just sit there for a while and let the water do its thing, and don't think about what that means. Chapter 4. The truck's not starting, Jack says. I look at him, then at the truck, then at the sky, which has gone from overcast to genuinely threatening in the last 20 minutes, the clouds sitting low and dark over the tree line, like they have somewhere to be, and it's here. Try it again, I say. I've tried it 3 times. Try it a 4th time. He tries it a 4th time. The engine makes a sound like it's clearing its throat, and then gives up entirely. The battery's dead, he says. I know what a dead battery sounds like, Jack. Then why did you tell me to try it again? I don't answer that. I look at the supply list in my hand, which has 14 items on it and only 7 checked off. And then I look at the road, which is empty in both directions, and has been empty since we turned off the main highway 30 minutes ago. The bait shop is 20 feet behind us, closed for the afternoon, with a covered porch and a rusted metal roof that is currently doing an excellent impression of something that could keep the rain off. Caleb knows we're out here, I say. He's got the rental group until 4. I'll call him. You've been calling him. He's not picking up. I call him anyway. It rings 4 times and goes to voicemail, and Caleb's recorded voice tells me he's probably on the water and to try the marina office, which I have also already tried. I hang up. The first fat drop of rain hits the hood of the truck, then another. Then the sky opens up like it's been waiting for exactly this moment, and Jack grabs the bag of supplies from the truck bed, and I grab my clipboard, and we run for the porch. The rain is loud on the metal roof. It comes down in sheets across the gravel lot and the road and the pine trees beyond, turning everything gray and close. The porch is narrow, 1 wooden bench along the wall, and a stack of old bait catalogs someone has given up on. And it smells like lake water and wood, and the particular damp pine smell that I have not missed and am currently finding very aggressive. Rule 7, I think. Do not get stranded with Jack Wilder. I write it in my notes app anyway, because the alternative is standing here in silence, and silence with Jack has started to feel like a thing that has weight and edges. What are you writing? He asks. Notes. For the festival? For myself. He sits down on the bench and sets the supply bag between his feet and leans back against the wall with the particular ease of someone who is genuinely comfortable being reined in on a bait shop porch, which is infuriating. The city was really that bad? He says. I look up from my phone. What? On the boat yesterday. You said it was the kind of good where you're always performing it. He doesn't look at me when he says it. He's watching the rain. I've been thinking about that. You didn't need to. Probably not, he says. But I did. The rain drums the roof. I put my phone in my pocket and sit on the far end of the bench, which is not far enough, and look at the supply list because it gives me somewhere to put my eyes. The city was fine, I say. The work was real, and I was good at it, and the clients were happy. And then, one day, I realized I'd been eating lunch at my desk for 8 months, and I couldn't remember a single thing about any of those lunches. And I thought, that's not actually what I was trying to build. I stop. Anyway. You say that a lot, Jack says. Anyway. It's a functional word. It means you've decided to stop talking. I'm aware of what it means. He's quiet for a moment. The rain shifts, easing slightly at the edges and then picking back up. Somewhere down the road, a branch comes down. I stayed, he says, because this was the first place that felt like mine. I don't say anything. My family was not like yours, he says. There wasn't a marina or a Sunday dinner or anyone who remembered what you ordered at a restaurant from one week to the next. Your mom remembered. Your mom asked follow-up questions. He says it plainly, no performance in it. I didn't have a plan to stay in Cedar Cove Lake forever. I just kept finding reasons not to leave, and eventually I stopped looking for them. Caleb, I say. Caleb, your mom, the lake, the work, a beat. All of it. I look at the rain. It's the honest version of the story, and I know it. And that's the problem with Jack. He doesn't dress things up. He just says them and then waits, and the waiting is the part I don't know what to do with. I didn't know any of that, I say, about your family. You weren't supposed to. You were 19, and you had your own things. Still, he agrees. The rain is steady now, the initial violence of it settling into something that could last an hour, or could stop in 10 minutes, and there is nothing to do about it either way. The supply list has 7 unchecked items. The truck has a dead battery. Caleb is on the water with 8 tourists who rented kayaks. I have decided not to ask the question. I have been very deliberate about not asking the question. I added a rule about it this morning specifically to prevent myself from asking the question, which was Rule 8. Do not ask questions if you are not ready for honest answers. Why did you pretend it didn't happen? I ask. Jack goes still. Not dramatically. He just stops moving the way people do when something lands squarely. The dock, I say. 6 years ago. You almost kissed me, and then you stepped back, and the next morning you treated me like I was Caleb's little sister, and nothing else had ever been true. And I spent a long time thinking I'd imagined it, and then I spent longer thinking I hadn't imagined it, and it was worse. I look at him. Why? He's quiet long enough that I think he might not answer. Then he turns to look at me, and his expression is the straightforward kind that he's always had. No deflection in it. Because Caleb had just handed me the dock keys, Jack says. He'd trusted me with the marina for the summer while your mom's knee was bad. He'd told me, the night before, that I was family. And I was standing on his dock thinking about kissing his sister, and it felt like the worst possible way to handle something someone had just given me. He pauses. That's the reason. It's not a good reason, but it's the one I had. You could have said something, I say. After. I know. Instead, you just acted like it was nothing, like I was nothing. Lena. His voice is steady and quiet. You were not nothing. You have never been nothing. I handled it badly, and I made you feel like I'd looked at you and decided to look away. And that wasn't what happened. I was 23 years old and terrified of losing the only real family I'd ever had. And I made a choice that hurt you. And I'm sorry. The rain comes down. A truck passes on the main road far behind us, headlights barely visible through the trees. I felt like an idiot, I say. For months. I kept going over it, wondering what I'd done wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. I know that now. I didn't know it then. I look at my hands. I was 22, and I thought if someone looked at me like that and then walked away, it meant something was wrong with me. So I left, and I found a city full of people who were very good at looking and very bad at staying, and I learned to want less. I stop. That's the city version. That's what I've been performing. Jack doesn't fill the silence with something reassuring. He just sits with it, which is somehow better. I'm sorry, he says again. Not a different version of it. That's it. I'm sorry. Something releases in my chest that has been held tight for long enough that I'd stopped noticing it. Not completely, not all the way, but enough that I breathe differently for a moment. Okay, I say. Okay? I'm not going to tell you it was fine, but I heard you. I look at the rain. I needed to know it wasn't me. It was never you, Jack says. We sit with that for a while. The rain thins out, still coming but softer now, the hard edge gone out of it. The gravel lot is wet and dark, and the truck sits in it looking apologetic. A crow lands on the fence post at the edge of the lot and tilts its head at us like it has opinions. Caleb's going to leave us out here until dark if we don't figure out the battery, I say. I've got jumper cables in the bag. You brought jumper cables on a supply run? I always bring jumper cables. This truck has done this before. And you didn't mention that before we left? I mentioned it to Caleb in March, Jack says. He said he'd take care of it. I look at the ceiling of the porch. Of course he did. We'll need another car to jump it. There'll be someone on the main road in the next 20 minutes. 20 minutes, I say, give or take. I pick up my clipboard. There are still 7 items on the supply list, and the hardware store closes at 6, and the rain is already easing off to the kind of drizzle that doesn't require running. I look at the list, and then I add the battery to the marina maintenance notes, with Caleb's name next to it in capital letters, because some things need to be documented. Lena, Jack says. For what it's worth. He's looking at the road. I'm glad you came back. I don't answer that. I write down truck battery, see Caleb, urgent, and underline it twice, and the rain keeps going, and down the road a pair of headlights appears through the trees, moving slow on the wet gravel, and Jack stands up with the jumper cables and raises a hand, and I sit on the bench with my clipboard and the 7 unchecked items, and the particular feeling of a window that has been painted shut for 6 years finally giving way. Not open yet, just loose. Chapter 5. You're changing the flyer design again, Caleb says. It is not a question. I'm improving the flyer design, I say. There's a difference. Lena, we printed 400 of those. And they look like a bake sale announcement from 2009, so we're going to need 400 new ones. I pull up the design on my laptop and turn the screen toward him. Look at this. It has clip art, actual clip art. There's a sailboat in the corner with a sun that has a face. Caleb stares at it. Mom made that. Mom made it with love, and I respect that completely, and we are still reprinting it. The marina office is small in the way of rooms that were built for one purpose and have since accumulated 3 decades of additional purposes, which means there are fuel logs stacked on the filing cabinet, and a life jacket hanging from the window latch, and a corkboard so full of pinned papers that adding anything new requires removing something first. I have been here for 4 days, and I have already reorganized the corkboard twice. Caleb has not commented on this, which means he either hasn't noticed or has noticed and is choosing his battles. He is currently choosing this one. We have a budget, he says. I know we have a budget. A tight budget. A very specifically, painfully tight budget. I can get the reprints done at cost. I know someone at a print shop in Millhaven who owes me a favor. I close the laptop. Caleb, the festival is in 4 days. If we want the attendance numbers to actually move, we need social posts, we need the redesigned flyer, and we need the event page updated so it doesn't list last year's hours. Last year's hours are mostly the same. Mostly, I say. Mostly is not the same as the same. He crosses his arms. He does this when he's gearing up for something, the arm crossing, the particular set of his jaw that means the next thing out of his mouth is going to be pointed in a direction I won't enjoy. I've known this tell since he was 14. You've been here 4 days, he says. I'm aware. And in 4 days, you've redone the corkboard, rewritten the rental agreement language, redesigned the flyer, and started what you're calling a marketing overhaul. Yes. And you don't think that's a little bit... He stops. Say it, I say. A little bit much? A little bit like you showed up and decided we'd been doing everything wrong? The office is quiet, except for the sound of the water against the dock outside and the distant noise of someone testing a speaker system near the pavilion. I set my pen down on the desk very deliberately. I came back to help, I say. I didn't ask you to. Mom did. Mom asks you to come home every summer. You've said no for 3 years running, and now you show up, and in 4 days, you've got opinions about everything we've been doing since you left." His voice has gone flat, not loud, flat, which is somehow worse. It's a little hard not to read that as you thinking we couldn't handle it. That is not what I think. Then what do you think, Lena? Because from where I'm standing, you've been here 4 days and you're already acting like the whole place was falling apart, waiting for you to save it. It lands squarely. I feel it land. The specific, targeted precision of a sibling who has known you long enough to know exactly where to aim. "The whole place was falling apart," I say, and my voice comes out quieter than I intend it to. "I looked at the books, Caleb. I saw the numbers. That's not me being condescending, that's just math." "I know the numbers." "Then you know the festival has to do more than break even this year. You know that if attendance doesn't increase by at least—" "I know," he says. "I've known for 8 months. I've been here for 8 months dealing with it, and you've been in the city. And now you're going to come in for a week and fix everything with a new flyer?" I don't say anything. There is nothing to say that won't make it worse. "I'm not trying to be the hero," I say finally. "I'm trying to help." "Sometimes those are the same thing," Caleb says. He picks up his clipboard and walks out. The door doesn't slam. That's almost worse, too. I sit in the office for a minute with the laptop and the redesigned flyer and the very sunny feeling of someone who has been told, in the most efficient possible way, that their help looks a lot like judgment from the receiving end. Then I get up, because sitting in the office feeling bad about it isn't going to improve the event page, and I go out to the dock. Jack is replacing a section of board near the slip where the pontoon is tied. He has a pry bar and a stack of new planks, and the particular focused expression of someone who is doing a task that requires attention and is happy about that. He looks up when I come out. "How bad?" he asks. He thinks I'm acting like a savior. I sit down on the dock box a few feet away. He said it nicer than that, but that's what he meant. Jack sets the pry bar down. "Did he say he didn't want the marketing help?" "No." "Did he say the flyer was fine?" "No. He said Mom made it." I pull my knees up and rest my chin on them. He said I've been gone for 3 years saying no, and now I'm here for 4 days with opinions about everything. Jack is quiet. He picks up a new plank and fits it into the gap, checking the alignment before he reaches for the drill. "He's not entirely wrong," he says. I know he's not entirely wrong. And you're also not wrong. The flyer has a sun with a face on it. It really does. He runs the first screw in, checks it, runs the second. "He's been carrying this alone for a while," Jack says. "The pressure of it. It's gotten into his bones. So when you show up and start moving fast and fixing things, even if the fixing is right, it can feel like I'm pointing at everything he didn't fix." Yeah. The lake is flat and bright this afternoon. A family of ducks has taken up residence near the far dock, and one of the rental kayaks is drifting slightly off its tie-off, which I add mentally to the list of things to fix before tomorrow. I am apparently constitutionally unable to stop adding things to lists, even when the lists are the problem. I didn't come back to make him feel like he failed, I say. He knows that. Jack moves to the next board. He's just tired. And you're easy to be frustrated at right now because you're here, and you're capable, and you remind him of all the things he's been too in the weeds to do himself. That's a very generous reading of him calling me a savior complex. "I said he wasn't entirely wrong," Jack says. "I didn't say you were." I watch him work for a moment. He doesn't fill silences with extra words. He never has. It used to read to me as indifference, and I understand now it's just patience. And that understanding doesn't make it less useful to sit next to. The marketing overhaul is the right call, he says. Do it. Just maybe stop rewriting things that are already working and focus on the stuff that clearly isn't. He'll come around. And if he doesn't? He will, Jack says. He always does. He just needs a day to be mad first. I nod. I'm not entirely convinced, but I'm also not going to argue with the person who has known my brother longer than most people have known themselves. Down the dock, the door to the bait shed opens, and Caleb comes out with a length of rope, heading toward the far slips. He stops when he sees us. He takes in the scene, me on the dock box and Jack crouched over the new planks a few feet away, and something shifts in his expression that I can't fully read from this distance. He doesn't say anything. He just keeps walking. But he looked at us for a moment longer than the situation required, and I noticed that. And I suspect Jack notices it too, because his hands go slightly still on the drill before he continues. He's going to figure it out eventually, I say, mostly to myself. Figure what out? Jack says. That you don't argue with me about everything. That you keep doing that thing where you hand me coffee without being asked, and then pretend it's logistical. I pause. He's going to notice. Jack doesn't answer right away. He finishes the plank and sits back on his heels and squints out at the water. Probably, he says. He told me last night you're basically his brother, I say. He said it like it was a joke, but he meant it. Jack is quiet. So you understand why I wrote a rule about this? I say. You and your rules. Rule 9, I say. Do not kiss your brother's best friend when your brother is already one unpaid invoice away from a breakdown. Jack finally looks at me. His expression is the steady, careful kind he keeps for things that matter. That's a very specific rule, he says. I have a very specific situation. He holds my gaze for a beat longer than is comfortable, and then he picks up the drill again and turns back to the dock. Down the way, Caleb has finished with the rope and is standing at the end of the far slip, looking out at the lake with his back to both of us. His shoulders are set the way they get when he's thinking hard about something he hasn't said yet. I pick up my clipboard. There are 7 items on the event checklist, and a new flyer to finalize, and a social media post to schedule before the afternoon is done. And the ducks near the far dock have recruited 3 more ducks since I sat down, which means the rental kayak situation is now also a duck situation. I write down kayak, dock 4, retie. Also, ducks. Jack makes a sound that might be a laugh, quiet enough that I could pretend not to hear it. At the end of the dock, Caleb turns around. He doesn't walk back toward us. He just stands there for a moment, looking at me and then at Jack, and then at the space between us, with the particular expression of someone who has just noticed a thing they're not sure they were ready to notice. Then he turns and goes back into the bait shed, and the door closes behind him, and the lake sits flat and bright and entirely unhelpful about all of it. Chapter 6. Rule 10, I say, mostly to the sunscreen bottle. Sunscreen is not a love language. Talia, who has been in Cedar Cove Lake for approximately 40 minutes and has already positioned herself on a dock box with a cold drink like she owns the place, raises her hand. I didn't say it was a love language. You were about to. I was about to say it looked like he was defusing a bomb he wanted to marry, which is completely different. The morning started reasonably. The vendor tents are going up along the pavilion, the rental kayaks are correctly tied, and I have crossed 7 things off a list that had 11 items on it, which is the kind of progress that should feel satisfying, and mostly does. Then I spent 2 hours running between a sound equipment delivery and a volunteer orientation, and a conversation with a kettle corn vendor who had the wrong slot assignment. And somewhere in that window, I forgot that the sun in June at this lake is not decorative. My shoulders are the color of a stop sign. Jack found me at the check-in table, squinting at a spreadsheet with my neck craned at an angle that was going to cause problems tomorrow, and he put a bottle of SPF 50 down next to my clipboard, without comment. I said I'd get to it. He said my shoulders said otherwise. I said my shoulders were fine. He picked up the bottle and held it out, and I said I couldn't reach the middle of my back. And then there was a pause that I did not handle particularly gracefully. That's where we currently are. You don't have to, I say. I know, Jack says. I could ask someone else. You could. Talia is right there. Talia has a drink in each hand, Talia says helpfully. Both of them are accounted for. Jack is standing behind me, and I am sitting on the edge of the dock box, and the entire situation has the energy of something that got out of hand while I was looking at a spreadsheet. He pours some sunscreen into his palm, and I stare very hard at the vendor tent going up across the lawn and think about logistics, about the kettle corn slot assignment, about literally anything else. His hands are warm. That's the first thing. They're also careful, which is worse, working the sunscreen across my shoulders in slow passes that cover the actual burn without any editorial commentary about the fact that I let it happen in the first place. He doesn't rush it. He doesn't make it a thing. He just does the thing. And I sit there being completely normal about it. Which is to say, I grip the dock box edge hard enough that my knuckles are probably interesting to look at. You missed a spot, Talia says, from approximately 15 feet away, and in a tone of voice that does not suggest she is talking about sunscreen coverage. I have it, Jack says. I'm sure you do. Talia, I say, I'm just sitting here. Jack finishes. He caps the bottle and sets it on the dock box beside me, and moves around to the front without making eye contact, which I appreciate deeply, and picks up a clipboard from the table. The speaker cable near the north tent needs a different adapter. I told the sound guy we had one in the storage shed, but I haven't confirmed that. I'll check it, I say. I'll check it, he says. You finish the vendor layout. He walks toward the storage shed. I watch the back of his flannel shirt until it disappears around the corner of the building, which takes approximately 4 seconds longer than it should. Rule 11, I say, turning back to the spreadsheet. Do not confuse basic competence with emotional availability. Talia makes a sound like a game show buzzer. Wrong! That wasn't a question. It was wrong anyway. She slides off the dock box and comes to stand next to me, peering at the vendor layout like she has opinions about kettle corn placement. He didn't put sunscreen on your back because he's competent, Lena. He did it because he wanted to touch you, and it was the only acceptable option available. Those are not mutually exclusive. Exactly, she says, and points at me like I've proven something. I have not proven what she thinks I've proven. My phone buzzes on the table. I glance at it because I'm expecting a confirmation from the ice supplier. And it's not the ice supplier. It's Trevor. The text reads, "Heard you went back home. Must be nice to take a break from real life." I put the phone face down on the table. Talia clocks this immediately because she has always had the peripheral vision of a lifeguard. Who was that? Nobody. Your whole face just did a thing. My face is fine. She picks up my phone. I don't stop her because she'd get there eventually anyway, and this saves time. She reads the text. Her expression goes through several distinct phases before landing on something that looks like controlled fury dressed up as calm. Trevor, she says. Yes. Trevor, who once told you that your career ambitions were a lot. Also yes. Trevor, who you dated for 8 months and who made you feel like wanting things was a personality flaw. I don't need the recap, Talia. I'm doing it for me. She sets the phone down. Delete it. I'm going to. Now. after I finish the vendor layout. She picks up the phone again and deletes the text herself and sets it back down with a finality that I find both annoying and, honestly, a relief. Done. You're welcome. The problem with Trevor's texts is not the texts themselves. The problem is the particular frequency they operate on, the one that gets into the part of my brain that is still, despite everything, capable of hearing, "Must be nice to take a break from real life," and wondering, for just a second, if he's right. If coming back here looks like running away. If saving the marina and redesigning the flyer and reorganizing the corkboard is just an elaborate way of proving I haven't failed, dressed up as helping my family. I pick up my clipboard and look at the vendor layout and am absolutely fine. Hey, Jack is back from the storage shed, adapter in hand, and he stops a few feet away. He takes in whatever my face is currently doing. What happened? Nothing. Did you find the adapter? Yes. He doesn't move toward the north tent. What happened? It was just a text from someone who doesn't matter. He looks at Talia. Talia says, "Trevor." And Jack's expression settles into something flat and brief before it clears. "Okay," he says. "I'm fine," I say. "I know you are." He pulls a pen from his shirt pocket and holds his hand out for my clipboard. I give it to him. He scans the vendor layout, makes a note in the margin, and hands it back. "Kettle corn should move 3 slots east. It's too close to the speaker stack, and it'll get drowned out when the band starts." I was going to move it. I know. He tucks the pen back. "The new social post went up this morning. Caleb showed me the registration numbers before I came out here. Up 14% from this morning." I look at him. 14? 14. The redesigned flyer is doing what you said it would do. He says it plainly, without ceremony, the way he says things that are just true and don't need dressing up. Whatever someone in the city thinks about what you're doing here, the numbers say something else. Talia puts her hand over her heart. I ignore her. 14%, I say again, because the number deserves a second look. Before noon on a Thursday. He picks up the adapter and turns toward the north tent. "Move the kettle corn." He walks away. I write "kettle corn" 3 slots east in the margin of my clipboard, directly below his note, which says the same thing. "Okay," Talia says, in the tone she uses when she has been patient for as long as she intends to be. "I have been here for less than an hour, and I already understand everything that's happening, and I need you to acknowledge that the list has a problem. The list is fine. The list has 10 rules, and 8 of them are specifically designed to prevent a man from doing things he is already doing. Rule 11 says, I know what Rule 11 says. I watched you write it 12 minutes ago as a direct response to him putting sunscreen on your sunburned shoulders because he didn't want you to be in pain." She picks up her drink. "That's not a rule, Lena. That's a symptom." Across the lawn, Jack is crouched at the base of the speaker stack, fitting the adapter into place with the same focused patience he brings to everything. The kettle corn vendor is watching me for direction. 2 volunteers are waiting near the tent stakes for confirmation on placement. There is a full afternoon of work ahead of me, and a list with 11 items on it, and a festival that is, as of this morning, 14% more attended than it was yesterday. Trevor's text is deleted. The adapter fits. The numbers are moving. I point at the kettle corn vendor and gesture 3 slots east. He nods and starts moving the tent. "I'm going to go confirm the ice delivery," I tell Talia. "Of course you are," she says. "Because someone has to." "Absolutely. That's not avoidance, that's logistics." "Mm-hmm." She settles back onto the dock box with her drink. "Tell the ice people I said hi." I walk toward the marina office with my clipboard, and I do not look back at the north tent. and I am absolutely, completely fine. Rule 11 stands. Competence and emotional availability are different things. I just wish he didn't keep being both at the same time. Chapter 7. Okay, Talia says the next morning, settling into the chair across from me at the marina office table, with the energy of someone who has been waiting to do this since she arrived. She has a notepad, an actual notepad. We're doing the audit. We are not doing the audit. The almost kiss audit. I need the full deposition, Lena. Every detail. Start from the beginning. There's a box of vendor confirmations that needs sorting, and a lighting order that still hasn't been confirmed, and I am not. I'll sort the confirmations after. Talk. She clicks her pen. I stare at the pen. I take a long drink of my coffee and look out the window at the dock, where Jack is already moving around with the string lights we're supposed to hang this evening, checking the lengths against the posts, like someone who planned ahead, which he always does, which is a problem I am setting aside for later. It was 6 years ago, I say. I know when it was. We were on the dock. It was late. Caleb had gone inside. I pause. That's the whole story. That is not the whole story, and you know it. She uncaps the pen. Were you standing or sitting? Talia. Sitting, she decides, writing it down. You always sit on the end of the dock when you're trying to feel less like you're about to leave somewhere. What were you talking about? I set down my coffee. I don't remember. You remember everything. You remembered the exact font size on the festival flyer from 3 years ago. That was a professional concern. What were you talking about? The window. The dock. Jack, now untangling a section of lights, with the patience of someone who does not find tangled things frustrating, which has always struck me as a personality trait that borders on suspicious. The city, I say finally. I was leaving in 2 weeks. He asked if I was scared, and I said no, because I wasn't, or I was pretending not to be. And then he said, I stop. He said he thought I was going to do something worth watching. Talia writes this down with a reverence that I find both touching and irritating. And then, she prompts. And then nothing. He leaned in, and I thought, it seemed like. I picked the coffee back up. And then he pulled back, said it was late, went inside. That was it. He just pulled back. He just pulled back. No explanation. None. Talia taps the pen against the notepad twice. And you spent the next 6 years assuming it meant he didn't want to. What else was I supposed to assume? She closes the notepad. You were supposed to ask him, she says, not unkindly. I take my coffee and the lighting order and go find something useful to do. By the time the sun starts dropping toward the tree line, the dock has been cleared and the boxes of string lights are stacked at the far end, waiting. Caleb assigned us the job at lunch with the casual authority of someone who didn't notice the particular quality of silence that followed, then walked away before either of us could respond. Jack hands me one end of the first strand. You take that post. I'll start at this end. I know how to hang lights. I know you know. We work without talking for a while. The lake is going golden and flat, the way it does at this hour, and the marina is quieter now that the afternoon volunteers have gone home. The lights go up in sections, looped through the hooks Caleb drilled into the posts years ago for exactly this purpose. I have done this before. I was 17 the first time, standing on a step stool while Jack held the ladder steady and Caleb handed up the strands. And I did not think about any of that then, so I am not going to think about it now. They look good, Jack says, stepping back to check the line of the second strand. They're crooked at the third post. He adjusts it without comment. I move to the next section and clip the strand into place, and the words are out before I've made a conscious decision to say them. Why did you stop? Jack goes still. Not startled exactly. More like someone who heard a sound they've been half expecting and is taking a second to make sure they heard it right. 6 years ago, I say, because apparently we're doing this now, on a dock with half-strung lights and an audience of nobody except the lake. You leaned in, and then you didn't. I'd like to know why. He sets down the strand he's holding, turns around fully. Caleb had just asked me to take over managing the dock rentals, he says. Full operational responsibility. He sat me down that afternoon and told me he trusted me with the whole summer season. I wait. And 2 hours later, I was about to kiss his sister on the dock. The lake is doing something very calm and unhelpful in my peripheral vision. I didn't want to be someone who took something without asking, Jack says. He'd just handed me something real. His family's business, Lena. And you were leaving in 2 weeks for a life that had nothing to do with this dock, and I didn't think I had the right to make that complicated for you. You didn't ask me, I say, whether I wanted complicated. No, he says. I didn't. You decided for me. Yes. He says it straight, no softening around the edges. And I've thought about that a lot. That I made a choice that was supposed to be yours to make. I clip another light into its hook. The strand is level this time. I thought you didn't want to, I say, and my voice comes out more even than I expected, which is a small miracle I will acknowledge privately and never mention aloud. For 6 years, I thought that was just what it was. That I'd read the whole thing wrong and you were being polite about it. Jack is quiet for a moment. You didn't read it wrong, he says. I clip the next hook. The lake catches the first light from the strand and throws it back in a long, broken line across the water. I'm sorry, he says, for making you feel like you'd imagined something that was real. That wasn't fair to you. The apology lands somewhere I wasn't braced for. Not a grand declaration, not a justification dressed up as honesty. Just the plain acknowledgement that he got it wrong, and that it cost me something. Okay, I say. Okay. I'm processing. Give me a minute. He picks the strand back up and moves to the next post, giving me the minute without making it a thing, which is somehow the most disarming version of him. I work through the third section. The lights go on. The dock starts to look like something out of a picture someone would post to show people that small towns aren't what they assumed. Talia conducted a formal audit this morning, I say. Of what? The almost kiss. She had a notepad. Something shifts in his expression. What were her findings? That I should have asked you 6 years ago instead of spending the subsequent years assuming the worst. She's not wrong. She is rarely wrong, which is deeply inconvenient. I move to the next section. She's very excited about all of this, for the record. She used the phrase, slow burn vindication, at breakfast. I don't know what that means. It means she thinks she saw this coming and would like credit. Jack makes a sound that is close to a laugh. Not quite, but close. We finish the last 2 sections in the early dark, the lights clicking on when Jack finds the extension cord and plugs it into the dock box. The whole length of the dock goes warm and gold, and the water below it catches each bulb and holds it. He's standing 2 feet away from me when I turn around, which is closer than I registered while we were working, and the dock is very quiet, and the lights are doing something completely unfair to the angles of his face. Lena, he says. Don't, I say. Not because I don't want him to, which would be the rational reason, but because I need a second to be sure this is not the same moment as 6 years ago, dressed up differently. that he's not going to pull back and go inside and leave me standing here with my conclusion about what that means. He doesn't move. He waits, which is the thing he does, the patient steadiness that I spent years misreading as disinterest and have only recently started to understand is something else entirely. Rule 12, I say. He raises an eyebrow. Do not kiss Jack Wilder until you believe him. The water moves below us, slow and unhurried. That's a new one, he says. I added it this morning. And do you? He says it quietly, with the same directness he brings to everything. Believe me? I look at the dock lights reflected in the water, at the length of the strand we hung together, level at every post, at my own hands, which have stopped doing the thing they do when I'm bracing for something to go sideways. I'm working on it, I say. It's the most honest thing I've said all week, and from the way he nods, like it's enough for now, like he's not going anywhere in the meantime, I think he knows that too. Chapter 8. We need someone on the kayak return station, Caleb says, not looking up from his clipboard. And someone at the vendor check-in tent. And someone who can explain to the Hendersons why their boat reservation got moved to the afternoon slot without it turning into a thing. I'll take the Hendersons, Jack says. I'll handle vendor check-in, I say at the same time. Caleb looks up from his clipboard, looks at us, looks back down. Fine, he says, and walks away. And that is how the festival begins. By 9 in the morning, Brooks Landing is packed in a way I have genuinely never seen it packed before. The parking lot is full. The dock is lined with people waiting for rentals. 3 different kids are already wearing the festival wristbands I ordered in the marina's colors, and a woman near the concession tent is taking a photo of the banner I designed at 2 in the morning 6 days ago. The turnout is not luck. It is the email campaign and the social posts and the weekend deal I put together with the 2 local hotels. And I know this, and it feels like something I am allowing myself to feel quietly and privately while I check vendor names against a spreadsheet on my phone. Brooks Landing Marina, says the woman with the kettle corn cart, squinting at me. You're the one who sent the confirmation emails. They were very thorough. Thank you. I got 3 of them. The 3rd one was a reminder. I know what it was. She says it cheerfully, which I take as a good sign, and I direct her to her assigned spot and move on to the next vendor on the list. Jack finds me at 11 with 2 cups of coffee and the information that the Henderson situation has been handled. How bad was it? I take the coffee without debating whether I should. A 4 on the scale of marina complaints. Minor grievance, resolved with an upgrade to a pontoon and a sincere apology. You gave them a pontoon? The afternoon slot had one available. They're happy, we're good. He says it the way he says most things, like the math was simple and the answer was obvious. And I drink my coffee and do not say that the pontoon upgrade was probably my idea 3 days ago in the contingency planning document that he definitely read. Kayak return is backed up, I say instead. There are 6 people waiting, and whoever Caleb put on that station is currently on a 15-minute break that started 22 minutes ago. I'll go. I already texted Marcy. She's sending Danny from the fuel dock. Jack nods. So you handled it? I handle things. It's a personality trait. I know. He says it without inflection, which somehow lands differently than if he'd said it with any. We split off again. The morning moves fast. I troubleshoot a sound system issue at the main stage, which takes 40 minutes, and the cooperation of a volunteer named Pete, who knows more about extension cord configurations than I have any right to be grateful for. I reroute foot traffic when the dock entrance gets congested. I find Talia staffing the merchandise table with the energy of someone who ran for office specifically to work this table, wearing a Brooks Landing cap she absolutely did not buy this morning. "You bought that this morning," I say. "I bought it in support of local business." She straightens the cap. "Also, it's cute. Also, Jack has walked past this table 4 times, and he's always looking in the same direction. He's doing operational checks." "Lena." "The direction he's looking is toward the check-in tent, which is an active operational area." "The check-in tent," Talia says, "is to the left. He is looking to the right, where you are standing." She holds out a wristband. "Here, you're not wearing one. You look like you work here." "I do work here." "You know what I mean." She snaps it onto my wrist before I can object. "Go handle something. You're doing great. The whole marina is doing great. You did this." I don't argue with her because she's not wrong, and arguing with correct people is a waste of everyone's afternoon. The crisis arrives at 2:15 in the form of a missing delivery. The food truck I booked for the centerpiece of the lunch hour never showed, and I discover this because 15 people are standing in the space where it was supposed to be, looking at an empty patch of gravel with the collective expression of people who were promised tacos. I get the owner on the phone in 30 seconds. He is apologetic and stuck on Route 9 behind a fender bender, and will be there in 45 minutes minimum. I thank him, hang up, and spend approximately 4 seconds being annoyed before I walk to the kettle corn cart and the 2 sandwich vendors and negotiate a covering arrangement that keeps the crowd fed and moving. I print a revised map from the marina office printer, hand it to Caleb's weekend volunteer, and have her walking the crowd with updates inside of 12 minutes. The food truck arrives at 3:05. The gap is covered. Nobody leaves. Jack is waiting near the boathouse when I come around the corner after briefing the late-arriving truck driver on where to park. "Talia texted me," he says. "Said you fixed the food truck thing in under 15 minutes. "Talia texts you?" "She texts everyone. She's been providing live updates since 9:30. He's leaning against the boathouse wall, arms crossed, and there is something in the way he's standing that I recognize as the particular stillness he gets when he's about to say something directly. "I'm proud of you." The words land flat and simple and completely without ceremony, which is exactly why they do what they do. "It was a logistics problem," I say. "You ran this entire festival from a spreadsheet and a cell phone and a plan you built in a week, and it's working. I'm allowed to say I'm proud of you." "You're allowed," I concede. "It's still a logistics problem." "Lena." "Thank you," I say. I'm working on accepting compliments without immediately classifying them. The corner of his mouth moves. Not quite a smile. Close enough that it counts. The space behind the boathouse is narrow and shaded, tucked between the building and the row of dock storage bins, and the festival noise is a layer removed from here, muffled and far enough away that it could belong to a different afternoon. Jack is still close from when we both stepped back to avoid the foot traffic rounding the corner, and neither of us has moved to correct that. "Rule 13, I say. He waits. Plausible deniability is not a relationship strategy. New addition? This morning. It felt relevant. I look at the gap between us, which is not very much of a gap. We keep almost doing something and then not doing it, and I keep telling myself it's operational proximity, and you keep not correcting me. "I'm not going to correct a version of events that keeps you standing near me," he says. That's a terrible answer. It's an honest one. The water is audible past the edge of the boathouse, and the festival is carrying on without us, and Jack is looking at me the way he has been looking at me all week, steady and unhurried, like he has already decided how this ends and is simply waiting for me to catch up to the same page. I tip forward slightly. He moves to close the remaining distance. Hey, have either of you seen the extra life vests? Caleb said they were back here, and I've got a whole... We step apart. 2 clean, immediate steps, like a choreographed routine we did not practice. Caleb rounds the corner with a clipboard, stops, and looks at us both with the expression of a man whose brain is doing very fast math that he does not entirely want to complete. Life vests, he says again, slower. Storage bin 3, Jack says, without missing a beat. Left side, middle shelf. Caleb doesn't move immediately. He looks at me. He looks at Jack. He looks at the entirely ordinary amount of space between us, which is now a very deliberate amount of space. What are you two doing back here? Inventory, Jack says. Inventory, I confirm. Of what? A brief pause. Air, Jack says. The air supply back here was running low. We're monitoring it. Caleb stares at him for a long moment, then at me, then back at Jack, with the look of someone who is choosing, very deliberately, not to pursue a line of questioning that will require him to do something about the answer. Storage bin 3, he repeats. Left side, Jack confirms. Middle shelf. Caleb turns around and goes back the way he came, and we listen to his footsteps move away across the gravel until the festival noise swallows them. I exhale. The air supply, I say. I worked with what I had. That was genuinely the worst cover story in the history of cover stories. And yet it worked. It did work, which is arguably more alarming than if it hadn't. I pull out my phone to check the vendor rotation schedule, because that is a productive thing to do, and also because the alternative is standing here, acknowledging that we just almost kissed behind a boathouse and got caught not doing it by my brother, which is a sentence I need a moment before I can fully look at directly. Marcy finds me 20 minutes later near the concession tent, and she does not have a clipboard or a question about storage bins. She has 2 bottles of water, and the particular expression she gets when she has been watching something unfold and has decided the time for silence has passed. Here, she hands me one of the bottles. You've been moving since 7 this morning. The festival doesn't run itself. No, she says. You ran it, and it's a wonderful thing to watch. She twists the cap off her own bottle. People are noticing, by the way. The turnout? I know. The parking overflow started at Lena. She says it gently, the way she says things when she wants me to stop performing and listen. Not the turnout. You and Jack. People are noticing. I drink my water. There's nothing to notice. Honey, Gus mentioned it to me at the fuel dock before 10 o'clock. Gus, who thinks romance is something that happens to other people. She caps her bottle. If you're waiting until nobody notices, you're already past that point by about 3 days. The festival carries on around us, cheerful and loud and entirely indifferent to this conversation. Someone near the main stage is laughing at something, and the kayak line has smoothed out, and the marina banner is catching the late afternoon light in a way that makes it look exactly like I hoped it would when I was designing it at 2 in the morning last week. Rule 14, I say, mostly to myself. Marcy raises an eyebrow. Do not kiss Jack Wilder behind buildings, docks, tents, trucks, or emotional support signage. She is quiet for a moment. That's a very specific rule. I'm a specific person. It is also, she says, a rule that sounds less like a boundary and more like a list of places you've already considered. She squeezes my arm once, brief and warm. The festival looks beautiful, Lena. You should be proud. She walks back toward the office, and I stand there with my water bottle and my very specific rules, and the distant sound of the lake doing its calm, unhurried thing beyond the dock. Plausible deniability, I think, is not going to survive the week. Chapter 9. The fireworks are scheduled for 9 o'clock, and at 8:53, I'm standing at the far end of the main dock, watching the festival wind down around me, with the particular feeling of someone who has been running at full speed for 7 days and has just noticed, for the first time, that her feet still work. The crowd is good, better than good. People are still at the concession tables, still renting kayaks for the last evening slot, still taking pictures in front of the banner that is, if I'm being honest, holding up remarkably well for something designed at 2 in the morning. The vendor tents are lit with string lights I sourced from a rental company in the next county over, and the whole marina is glowing in a way that looks intentional, which it is, because I made a lighting diagram. I pull out my phone, check the vendor wrap-up checklist. Everything is either done or in progress. The food truck has already packed out. The kayak crew is pulling in the last boats. Caleb is somewhere near the equipment shed, doing what Caleb does, which is find one more problem to solve 10 minutes before he's allowed to stop solving problems. I put my phone away. The dock boards are warm under my feet from a full day of sun, and the lake is going dark at the edges where the light doesn't reach. And somewhere behind me, there are children with glow sticks and parents with lawn chairs, and Gus, presumably, with opinions about all of it. It is a good night. I built this, and it is a good night. And I am standing at the end of the dock, letting myself know that. Rule 15, Jack says from directly behind me. I do not jump. I also do not turn around immediately, because I am practicing composure. I didn't add a Rule 15, I say. You're going to. He stops beside me, close enough that I can see him in my peripheral vision, hands in his pockets, watching the water. Fireworks are an unfair advantage. I turn my head. That's a terrible rule. That's the opposite of a rule. That's an acknowledgement that the rule isn't working. Still counts. The lake moves in the way lakes move at the end of summer evenings, slow and deliberate, like it has nowhere to be. Across the water, someone has set up chairs on the opposite bank. The sky above the tree line is the color of something that took all day to get there. You did it, Jack says. We did it. I fixed boats and handled the Hendersons. You built the thing. He pauses. Don't argue with me about this one. I mean it. I don't argue. That's new. I file it away as evidence of personal growth and say nothing. The list, Jack says after a moment. How many rules are we at now? 15, apparently, if we're counting yours. I want to count mine. You don't get to add to my list. And yet... He glances at me sideways, and there is nothing complicated about the way he's looking at me, which is somehow the most complicated thing about it. Are you tired of it? Of the list? Of pretending you don't care? The dock is quiet at this end. The festival noise is back toward the main area, and out here it's just the water and the sky doing its unhurried thing, and the two of us standing at the edge of something that has been building since before I came back, and maybe since before I left. Yes, I say. I'm tired of it. He nods, once, like he already knew and just needed me to say it out loud. I'm tired of it too, he says. I've been tired of it for a long time. Jack, 6 years, Lena. I've been careful for 6 years. I've been respectful and patient, And I've told myself every reasonable thing a person tells themselves when they're trying to do right by someone. He turns to face me fully now. I'm done being reasonable about this. The first firework goes up behind us. The sound of it travels across the water before the light does. A deep, hollow boom that rolls over the dock. And then the sky above the far tree line opens up in white and gold. And the crowd behind us makes the sound crowds make at fireworks. That collective exhale of people who forgot, just for a second, that they were standing on the ground. I do not look at the fireworks. Rule 16, I say, and my voice comes out steadier than I expected to. Do not kiss Jack Wilder unless you are ready for everything after. He waits. Another firework goes up, red this time, scattering into sparks over the water. Are you? He asks. And the thing is, I have spent 6 years being very clear with myself about what I want and what I don't want, and what I'm allowed to want. And I have spent 6 days building a list of rules specifically designed to keep me from standing in exactly this position. And all of that is true. And also, the answer is yes. Yes, I say. He closes the remaining distance between us, and his hand comes up to the side of my face. And then Jack Wilder kisses me on the dock, while the fireworks go off overhead, and the lake reflects the light back at us, and the crowd behind us is looking at the sky and not at us, which means this moment belongs entirely to the two of us. It is not tentative. It is not the almost from behind the boathouse, or the almost from 6 years ago on a different dock on a different night. It is the real thing, unhurried and certain, and it carries 6 years of being careful in every single second of it. When we break apart, the sky is still going off in bursts of color, and I can feel my own heartbeat in an embarrassing number of places. Okay, I say. Okay, he agrees. That was... I stop. I don't have a classification for that. You don't need one. Another firework, blue and silver, and I watch it scatter and think that my mother was right about the fireworks being an unfair advantage, which means Jack was right, which I am choosing not to say out loud. I turn back toward the crowd because the festival is still technically happening, and I am technically still running it. And that is when I see Caleb. He is standing 50 feet away near the edge of the dock path, holding a radio in one hand and not using it. He is looking in our direction with the expression of a man whose brain has just completed the math he has been avoiding all week, and does not love the answer but cannot argue with the arithmetic. He doesn't move toward us. He doesn't wave. He just stands there for one long moment, and then he turns around and walks back toward the equipment shed. He saw us, I say. Yes. We need to talk to him. Yes. Tonight, I say, and I hear what I'm doing even as I'm doing it, the instinct to organize the next thing before I've finished being in this thing, the habit of moving that has kept me safe for years. I stop. Actually, can we finish the night first? Jack is quiet for a second. Lena. I know that's not fair. I'm asking anyway. He looks at me for a long moment. Then he looks out at the water, and then back at me, and his expression is the particular steadiness that I used to mistake for indifference, and eventually understood was something entirely different. One condition, he says. What? I'm not pretending it didn't happen. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not in front of Caleb or your mother or Gus or anyone else who asks. He holds my gaze. We finished the night. I'll give you that. But I'm done hiding. The fireworks are still going, one after another, painting the water in colors that have no business being this beautiful at a marina in a small town on an ordinary festival Saturday. The crowd is cheering. A kid somewhere behind us is losing his mind about a particularly large one that leaves a gold trail halfway across the sky. "Okay," I say. "Deal." "Deal," he says, and something in the word sounds like a beginning rather than an end, and I let myself stand there with that for a moment before I pull out my phone and check the kayak wrap-up status, because the festival does not stop for personal revelations, and neither, apparently, do I. Jack stands beside me while I read the update from the dock crew, close enough that his shoulder is against mine, and he does not move away from that, and I do not move away from it either. Above us, the fireworks keep going, the lake keeps catching the light, and somewhere near the equipment shed, my brother is standing with a radio and a complicated expression, and that conversation is coming, and I know it, and Jack knows it, but not yet. First, we finish this. Chapter 10. I wake up at 6:14 in the morning with the specific, stomach-dropping clarity of someone who has just remembered exactly what she did the night before. I kissed Jack Wilder. On the dock. During the fireworks. In front of, potentially, my brother. I lie very still for 30 seconds and assess the situation. The ceiling fan turns. A bird outside does something cheerful and unhelpful. My phone has 4 unread texts from Talia, sent between midnight and 2 a.m., escalating in punctuation and capital letter usage in a way that tells me word travels fast in Cedar Cove Lake, even at night. I do not read them. I put the phone face down and get out of bed, because the alternative is lying here cataloging every way this goes wrong, and I have a marina to help clean up, and that is a concrete task with a beginning and an end, and no emotional variables. This is the plan. Clean up, stay busy, do not have feelings where anyone can see them. The marina is already active when I get there at 7. The festival cleanup is the unglamorous side of event planning, the part nobody thinks about when they're watching fireworks, and I throw myself into it with the focused energy of someone who needs very badly to be carrying things. Trash bags, folded tables, string lights wound carefully back onto their spools. I work fast, which means I am everywhere, which means I can be reasonably unavailable without it looking like I'm being unavailable. Caleb finds me behind the equipment shed at 7:45, reorganizing a storage cart that did not need reorganizing. "Hey," he says. "Hey," I say, and I do not stop moving the bins. He watches me for a moment. "You're stress cleaning." "I'm post-event organizing." "Those bins were already organized." "They're better now." He doesn't say anything else. He picks up a folding table leaning against the wall and carries it to the stack near the dock, and I take that as confirmation that he is not, at this particular moment, ready to have the conversation either. That makes 2 of us. I file this under temporary mercy and keep moving. I am carrying a box of surplus napkins to the main office when I hear them. Jack's voice first, low and certain, coming from the other side of the boat shed. Then Caleb's. I stop walking. I know I should keep walking. I stop anyway. "I'm not asking you to be fine with it right now," Jack says. "I'm telling you how it is." "And I'm telling you," Caleb says, "that you could have said something. Before. At any point in the last 6 years." "I know. So why didn't you?" A pause. I hold the napkin box and do not breathe. "Because I didn't want to risk losing the family," Jack says. "This family. Your mom, you, all of it. I wasn't willing to blow that up if it went wrong." The sentence lands somewhere between my ribs and my stomach and sits there. I don't wait to hear what Caleb says back. I walk to the main office, set down the napkins, and stand at the window looking at the lake, which is flat and bright and completely indifferent to the fact that I have just confirmed what I already suspected. He wasn't willing to risk losing the family. I run that sentence back through my head 2 more times, just to make sure I have it right. He kissed me on the dock. He said he was done hiding, and this morning he is telling my brother that the risk he was trying to avoid was losing them. Not losing me. Not the almost from 6 years ago. The family is the thing he's been protecting, which means I am the variable. The thing that could have cost him the life he built here. The risk. I sit down at the desk and pull out my phone. There are still 4 unread messages from Talia. Below them, a voicemail notification from Trevor. I stare at it for a second, then press play, because apparently my morning has not been sufficiently instructive. "Hey, Lena, it's Trevor." He says it like I might have forgotten his voice in 3 months. "I heard you went back to your hometown for some festival thing. Look, I think that's great, I do. I think you needed a reset. But when you're done playing small town for the summer, call me. You're too smart for whatever you're doing down there. You always had this thing where you made everything bigger than it needed to be. Anyway, call me." I end the voicemail. You always had this thing where you made everything bigger than it needed to be. I sit with that for exactly as long as it takes to feel the familiar, particular shame of it, the version of myself that wanted too much and showed it too clearly and got handed back to herself in pieces because of it. The girl who stood on a dock 6 years ago, reading something real into a moment that the other person was already calculating the cost of. And then I open my notes app. I scroll to the list. 16 rules. The last one added on a dock while fireworks went off, and I thought, for a few minutes, that I had stopped being afraid. I type, Rule 17. Do not kiss Jack Wilder if he is only brave when no one is watching. I set the phone face down on the desk. Then I pick it back up and read the rule again, and it is the most honest thing I have written in days. And I hate it. And I save it. I am back outside 20 minutes later, working on the kayak rack inventory, when Jack appears at the end of the dock path. He doesn't announce himself. He just comes to stand close enough to be in my space and says, "You heard us." It is not a question. I keep counting kayaks. "I heard enough," I say. "Then you heard the wrong part." "Jack." "Lena." He says my name the same way I said his, flat and certain, and I stop counting. "What do you think I meant?" "I think you meant exactly what you said. I think you weighed what you had here against what kissing me might cost you, and the math has always been the same." I turn to face him. I'm not angry about it. That's the thing. I understand the math. I've been doing the same math since I got here. "That's not the math I was doing." "You said you didn't want to risk losing the family." "I said that was why I waited 6 years," he says. Past tense. "Caleb asked me why I never said anything before, and I told him. That is not the same as telling you I regret last night." I look at him. He is steady in the particular way he has always been steady, which is either the most reassuring quality a person can have or the most maddening one, depending on the day. "Where's your phone?" he says. "What?" "Your phone. You have a list. I want to see Rule 17. The back of my neck goes warm. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You always write a rule when something scares you." He holds out his hand. "I've watched you do it all week. So what did you write this morning?" I do not give him my phone. I recite it instead, because that feels marginally less exposing, and I am not sure why. Do not kiss Jack Wilder if he is only brave when no one is watching. He is quiet for a beat. That's fair, he says. I know it's fair. It's also not the whole truth. He takes one step closer. Caleb knows enough. Your mother knew before Caleb did, which, for the record, is slightly terrifying. Gus has apparently had opinions about this since last Tuesday. I talked to your brother this morning. Properly. I told him last night was not a mistake, and I told him I wasn't going to pretend it didn't happen. That's not the same as choosing me, I say. His expression shifts, something careful giving way to something clearer. No, he says. It isn't. Not yet. But I'm going to. Jack, I'm not asking you to take my word for it in the middle of a kayak inventory, he says. I know what you heard. I know what it sounded like. So let me do this the right way. What does that mean? It means no more half conversations, no more hallway overhearing, no more guessing what I meant after I've already walked away. He looks toward the boat shed, where Caleb disappeared 20 minutes ago. It means I talk to your brother properly, and then I talk to you. In that order? In that order, he says, because I should have done it 6 years ago. The lake is very bright. A pelican lands on one of the far posts and immediately looks judgmental about it. I also got a voicemail from Trevor this morning, I say. He thinks I'm playing small town for the summer. What do you think? I think he called the wrong number. Something shifts in Jack's expression. Yeah? I think I've been writing rules to keep myself from wanting things that felt too big to want safely. I put the clipboard down on the nearest kayak. And I think Rule 17 is the last one. Not because I've stopped being scared. Because I'm tired of letting the scared version of me make all the decisions. He reaches out and takes the clipboard from me, sets it on the rack, and says nothing, which is the right call, because sometimes the right call is silence, and Jack has always known that. So what happens to the list? He says after a moment. I'm keeping it, I say, for evidence. Of what? That I tried very hard not to fall for you and failed completely. He laughs, low and quiet, and it does something inconvenient to my chest. Down the dock, someone calls his name. He glances that way, then back at me. I have to go fix a motor, he says. I know. I have an inventory to finish. Tonight, he says. No more almost. We talk properly. Properly, I agree. He goes. I watch him walk down the dock toward the boat shed, and then I pick up my clipboard, and I open my notes app, and I read Rule 17 one more time. Then I close the app without deleting it, because I earned that rule, and I'm keeping it, right alongside all the others. Evidence of a person who was afraid, and also evidence of a person who showed up anyway. The lake is flat and bright, and the cleanup crew is working. Caleb is somewhere near the shed with his complicated expression and probably his duct tape. The festival is over, and something else is just beginning. But I have an inventory to finish. I start counting kayaks again. Chapter 11. I'm packing my bag with the focused efficiency of someone who has made a decision and is not going to unmake it. Jeans, the good cardigan, the toiletry case I never fully unpacked because some part of me knew, from the moment I pulled into the marina parking lot, that this was always going to be temporary. I pull open the bottom drawer of the dresser in the spare room and find 3 mismatched socks, a hair tie, and the old gray sweater I brought from home that has been missing since Tuesday. I check behind the dresser. I check under the bed. I check the hooks behind the door, which yields nothing except a faded rain jacket of Caleb's that has probably been there since high school. The sweater is not in this room, which means I left it somewhere in the marina, which means I have to go find it before I leave, which is a minor logistical inconvenience and absolutely not a metaphor for anything. I zip my bag to its current state of fullness and go downstairs. The marina office is quiet at this hour, the kind of quiet that comes after a festival weekend when everyone has gone home and the cleanup is done and the place is catching its breath. I push open the side door and walk through the back hallway, past the filing cabinet that has never fully closed and the ancient coffee maker that Caleb treats with more tenderness than he treats most people. I find the sweater immediately. It is folded on the corner of the desk beside the radio, which means someone picked it up and put it there, which means someone knew it was mine, and I am not going to think about which someone. I pick it up. I am about to leave. That is when I hear them. Caleb's voice first, coming from the equipment room on the other side of the wall, loud enough that the thin partition between us does essentially nothing. "You should have told me, Jack. You should have said something before you kissed my sister on a dock in front of half the town." I go very still. "I know," Jack says. "That's all you've got? You know?" "I've got more than that." A pause. "You want to have this conversation? Then let's have it. But I'm not going to stand here and apologize for how I feel about her. That part, I'm not sorry for." I should leave. I am aware that I should leave. My feet are in disagreement with this position. "How long?" Caleb asks. His voice has shifted, quieter now, the anger replaced with something more tired. "A while." "Jack." "Years," Jack says. "A lot of them. You want an exact number? I can't give you one, because it wasn't a moment I can point to. It was gradual. And then it was just true. And then she left for the city, and I thought that was the answer. I thought it was easier if I just kept it to myself." The equipment room is very quiet. I press my back against the desk and hold the sweater against my chest like it is doing something useful. "And last night wasn't keeping it to yourself," Caleb says. "No. Last night was me being done keeping it to myself. She's my sister, Jack. I know who she is." Something in Jack's voice changes, not louder, but more certain. "She's the person who stayed up 3 nights in a row fixing your social media presence so you'd have a shot at this festival. She drove 6 hours to help you when you called. She put every piece of what she knows into saving this marina, and she did it because she loves this family, and you know that." A beat. "And she's also the person I've been in love with for years, and those two things are both true at the same time. You don't get to make me choose between them." My throat does something uncomfortable. "I'm not asking you to choose," Caleb says, and he sounds more tired than angry now. "I just don't want her to get hurt again. You know what happened the last time. You watched it happen. She came back here 2 weeks ago looking like someone who had been talked into believing she was too much. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that doesn't matter to me." "It matters to me too," Jack says, "more than you know. And that's exactly why I'm not hiding. I'm done doing the thing where I stay quiet because it's safer. That's not protecting her. That's just protecting myself." There is a long pause. "You hurt her," Caleb says, "and I will make your life extremely difficult." "Yeah," Jack says. "I know. I mean it. I will be relentless." "Caleb." I will be the worst version of a protective older brother you have ever seen in your life. I understand. Good. Another pause, shorter this time. She deserves someone who actually shows up. You can do that? That's the only thing I know how to do, Jack says. Show up. I've been showing up for years. I'm just done pretending that's all it is. I've been standing in this office long enough that my legs have started to feel like they belong to someone else. I look down at the sweater in my hands. I look at the door to the hallway. I look at the wall between me and the equipment room, which is doing a genuinely poor job of being a wall. Then I walk around it. The equipment room door is half open. I push it the rest of the way and step inside, and both of them turn at the same time, and the three of us stand there for a moment in the particular silence of people who have been caught in the middle of something true. Caleb looks at me, then at Jack, then back at me. How long have you been standing there? Long enough, I say. He closes his eyes briefly. Of course. Jack is watching me with the steady attention he has always had, not moving, waiting to see what I do next. His expression doesn't try to explain itself. He just looks at me, and I look back. And it is the most honest 2 seconds I have experienced all week. You told him, I say to Jack. Yes. Out loud, with full sentences. That tends to be how I talk. Caleb makes a sound that is somewhere between exasperated and fond. I'm going to go check on the fuel dock, he announces, to nobody in particular, and he picks up his clipboard from the shelf and walks past me toward the door. He stops with his hand on the frame. Lena. Yeah? I meant what I said. He doesn't look at Jack. He looks at me, and his voice is the version of Caleb I don't hear very often, the one underneath the gruffness. You deserve someone who shows up, okay? My chest does something I am not going to describe. Okay, I say. He nods once and goes. The door swings behind him. We listen to his footsteps move down the hall and out the side exit. And then it is just the two of us in the equipment room with its smell of motor oil and old rope and the low hum of the lake outside the window. You were packing, Jack says. He nods toward the sweater still balled up in my hands. I was looking for this. That's not what I asked. I set the sweater on the shelf beside me. I thought you regretted it. The dock, the fireworks, all of it. I heard you yesterday morning telling Caleb you didn't want to risk losing the family, and I filled in the rest of the sentence myself, and the sentence I filled in was not a good one. I know what sentence you filled in. You could have corrected me yesterday. I tried. He doesn't say it like an accusation. You were counting kayaks with the focus of someone diffusing something, and I said my piece, and then I had a motor to fix. But you're right. I should have been clearer. He takes a step forward. So let me be clear now. I don't move. Go ahead. I told your brother I'm in love with you. Not that I have feelings, not that I care about you, not that things have gotten complicated. I told him I am in love with you, and have been for years, and I am not interested in keeping that information to myself anymore. He stops close enough that I would have to tip my head slightly to avoid looking at him. So I don't avoid it. That's the sentence. That's the whole sentence. The lake light comes through the small window and lands on the equipment shelves and does nothing to help me organize my thoughts, which are not organized. They are the opposite of organized. They are 16 rules and 1 sweater and a voicemail from a man who thought I was too much, and a dock and fireworks, and Jack Wilder standing in front of me, saying the whole sentence out loud. I had a bag half packed, I say. I know. I was going to go back to the city and call it a clean exit. I know that too. I wrote a rule, I say. Rule 17. Do not kiss someone who is only brave when no one is watching. You showed me that rule. I know I showed you. I'm telling you it was wrong. I reach for the doorframe beside me, not for support, just to have something to do with my hand. You were out there this morning telling my brother things that are real and permanent before you even knew I was in the building. That's not a man who saves his bravery for docks and darkness. Something shifts in his face, not dramatically, just a small, certain settling, like something that was held in tension releasing. No, he says, it's not. I'm also, I say, terrified, for the record. I know you are. That's not going to just stop being true because you said a nice thing in an equipment room. I'm not asking it to stop. He reaches out and picks up my hand from where it's resting against the doorframe and holds it, not dramatically, just holds it, the way people hold things they intend to keep. I'm asking you to be terrified and stay anyway. The marina is quiet around us. Somewhere outside, Caleb is checking the fuel dock with excessive focus and probably his duct tape. The lake is doing whatever the lake does on a clear afternoon when it is not being symbolic about anything. A motor starts up somewhere near the boat slips and then cuts off. The list is gone, I say. All 17 rules. I'm not keeping it. Okay. Not deleted, just retired. For evidence. Evidence of what? That I tried very hard to be sensible about you, and it didn't work at all. He laughs, and it is quiet and real, and I feel it somewhere behind my collarbone. He tugs my hand gently, and I step forward, and then I am standing close enough that the list and the rules and the 17 attempts at keeping myself safely contained feel very far away and somewhat beside the point. We're doing this, I say, out loud, visibly, no strategy. That's the only way I want to do it. Caleb is going to be dramatic about it for at least 3 weeks. Minimum, Jack agrees, possibly longer. My mother already knew. Your mother has known since approximately the first Tuesday. I shake my head. She's going to be insufferable. She's going to be right, he says, which is worse. I tip my head up. He is looking at me in a way that has nothing cautious in it, nothing calculated, nothing that is measuring cost against outcome. He is just looking at me, in the full afternoon light coming through the equipment room window, on a completely ordinary Thursday at a marina that smells like lake water and old rope. And it is the least dramatic and most real moment I have had in years. I go up on my toes and kiss him first this time, because I am done waiting for the right conditions, and the rules are retired, and I want to, and those 3 things are enough. He kisses me back, steady and certain, and with absolutely no indication that he plans to stop anytime soon, which is exactly right. When we break apart, I stay close. I'm not going back to the city, I say. Good. I'm going to start a marketing business, here, at the lake. I know, your mother mentioned it. Of course she did. I lean back just enough to look at him properly. Gus is going to have opinions. Gus has already had opinions, Jack says. He told me last Tuesday I was wasting everyone's time. He wasn't wrong. No, Jack says, he was not. Outside, in the direction of the fuel dock, we hear Caleb's voice call something unintelligible toward the water. We hear a splash that is probably not equipment. We hear Caleb say, very clearly, "That was not my fault." Jack looks toward the window. I look toward the window. We look at each other. We should go help him, I say. Probably, Jack says. And he doesn't move, and neither do I, and it is, by any reasonable measure, a perfect 30 seconds. Then I pick up my sweater off the shelf, and Jack opens the equipment room door, and we walk out together into the bright, ordinary afternoon. Chapter 12. "You're smiling," Jack says. I'm standing on the dock with my coffee, and the kind of morning that doesn't ask anything of you. The lake flat and pale gold in the early light, and I didn't realize I was smiling until he said it. I'm allowed to smile. Never said you weren't. He's got a mug too, standing a few feet down the dock, with his shoulders loose and his hair still not entirely cooperative. Just noting it. Note taken. I take a sip. It's a good morning. Yeah, he says. It is. He moves closer, unhurried, the dock boards barely registering his weight. He stops beside me, and we stand there looking at the water, and it is not a complicated moment. It's just a morning. I have spent so long waiting for mornings to become complicated that I keep bracing for it, and it keeps not happening. And eventually I'm going to have to accept that this is just what it feels like. Chosen. That's the word for it. I feel chosen. Which is a word I would have rolled my eyes at 2 weeks ago. And now I'm standing here at 7 in the morning, letting it sit in my chest without arguing with it. I've been thinking, I say, about the business. You can't just know what I'm about to say. You had your planning face on before you opened your mouth. I don't have a planning face. He turns to look at me and says nothing, which is its own kind of answer. Fine, I have a planning face. I hold the mug with both hands. I want to do this properly, not just freelance work from my old laptop at the kitchen table, an actual business, Cedar Cove-based, with the marina as my anchor client. I have 4 other businesses on this lake that have been running on word of mouth and hand-painted signs since before I was born, and they all need help, and I know how to help them. Jack is quiet for a moment. Not the kind of quiet that means he's calculating what to say. The kind that means he's listening all the way to the end. That's a good plan, he says. I know it's a good plan. I made it. He smiles into his coffee. I just want to make sure you're doing it because you want it, not because it's the version of staying that feels safest. I think about that for a second. Really think about it, not the defensive, knee-jerk version. I've been good at my job for years, and I've been doing it for people who didn't particularly care whether I stayed or went. I want to do it here, for people who actually know my name. That's not small. That's what I want. Okay, he says. I'm not shrinking anything. I'm just pointing it somewhere that matters. I know. He says it the same way he says most things, like it was never in question. I wasn't going to ask you to make yourself smaller, Lena. I want to be clear about that. Whatever you build, I want it to be yours. The lake does its quiet, unhurried thing. A heron lifts off from the far bank and crosses the water without any apparent urgency. You're annoyingly reasonable, I tell him. I've been told. It's a lot to deal with before 8 a.m. I'll try to be more difficult. Please don't. I lean into his shoulder, just briefly, and he tips his head down so his cheek rests against my hair for exactly 1 second before Caleb's voice carries across the yard from the direction of the main building. If you two are done being scenic, the grill won't light itself. Jack straightens. I straighten. We look at each other. 3 weeks minimum, I say. Probably the whole summer, Jack says, and goes to deal with the grill. The final cookout is Caleb's idea, which means it is chaotic in a specific way that only Caleb's ideas ever are. The tables are slightly uneven, The paper plates are the wrong size for the amount of food. Talia has arrived in a sundress that has absolutely nothing to do with a marina cookout and is currently arranging a condiment display with the focus of someone doing something that matters very much. "You're here," she says when she sees me coming across the yard. "I live here now." "I know. I'm still allowed to be excited about it." She puts down the mustard and turns to face me fully, and her expression is the particular expression she gets when she has been right about something and intends to receive credit. "I would like to formally note that I told you so, multiple times, in increasingly specific detail." "You did." "And you told me I was projecting." "I was wrong." She grabs both my arms. "Say that again." "Absolutely not." I bump my shoulder against his. He lets me. We stand there for a minute, in the comfortable way you can only stand with someone who has known you your entire life, and the evening comes in quietly from the east, and the marina smells like summer and lake water, and the specific brand of chaos that has always meant home. "For what it's worth," I say, "if you have any more protective older brother speeches prepared, Jack can probably take them." "Oh, I have more," Caleb says pleasantly. "I have a whole catalog. I'm going to roll them out slowly, for maximum effect." He's expecting it. "Good. I want him to see it coming." He finishes his soda. "He's my best friend, Lena. I know who he is. I've known who he is for years. I just needed to be mad about it for a while." "I know. And now I'm done being mad about it." "Noted. As long as we're clear." "Crystal," I tell him. He walks back toward the grill and immediately gets into what appears to be a debate with Gus about whether the remaining hot dogs are done. I watch them argue for a moment, and then I go find Jack. He's at the end of the dock, not the main pier, the smaller one off the south side, where the rental boats tie up in the off-season. He's sitting on the edge with his feet off the boards, looking out at the water, and the evening light is doing something generous with the whole picture. I sit beside him. The wood is warm from the afternoon sun. Below us, the lake is very clear and very still. "Caleb gave me a speech," he says. "How many points?" "4, with subpoints." "That's actually fewer than I expected." "He said he's pacing himself." Jack rests his forearms on his knees. "He also said, and I'm quoting, that if I hurt you, he'll repurpose my truck as a lake feature." "That's on brand." "I told him I wasn't planning to hurt you." "What did he say?" "He said nobody plans to." Jack glances over. "Then he handed me a hot dog and walked away, which I think is his version of acceptance." "It is. You're in." The light on the water has shifted to the particular amber that only happens in the last half hour before it all goes soft and violet. And the lake is doing what it does this time of day, which is look like someone painted it with something careful. I pull my phone out of my pocket. "I made a new list," I say. Jack looks at the phone. "Another list." "A different kind of list." I hold it out so he can see the screen. He reads it. I watch his face while he reads it. The small shift from curiosity to something else, something quieter and more settled. At the top, where Rule 1 used to say, "Do not look at Jack Wilder like he is something you are allowed to want," it now says, in the note I typed out this morning at the kitchen table with my coffee going cold beside me, "The kissing list." Rule 1. Kiss Jack Wilder whenever you feel like it. The rest of the rules follow in the same pattern. Every no converted to a yes, every prohibition flipped. All 17 of them, rewritten from the ground up. He finishes reading. He hands the phone back without saying anything. And for 1 second, I wonder if I have miscalculated the grand gesture. If this is the moment where it turns out I am, in fact, too much after all. And then he says, very quietly, "I love you." Just that. No preamble, no setup, no reaching for the words. He says it the way he does everything, straight and steady and like it has always been true, and he is simply reporting a fact he has held for a long time. I love you too, I say. He takes the phone gently from my hand and sets it face down on the dock behind us, and then he turns toward me, and I tip forward to meet him, and we kiss in the last of the evening light with the lake underneath us and the cookout noise drifting from the yard, and Caleb somewhere behind us, presumably pretending not to notice. When we pull apart, the sky has gone soft at the edges, the first pale hint of stars showing up above the tree line. We should go back, I say. Probably. Neither of us moves. The dock holds us. The lake does its patient thing. I'm going to be good at this, I tell him. The business, the staying, all of it. I know you are. And I'm going to be annoying about it sometimes. I'm going to have 17-point plans and opinions about the marina's Q4 strategy, and mornings where I need the coffee before I can be a reasonable person. I make the coffee, he says. I already know how you take it. I sit with that for a second. He does know. He has known for a long time. The way he knows a lot of small things about me that I never had to say out loud. And I spent years thinking those things didn't count, that knowing someone quietly wasn't the same as choosing them loudly. And I was wrong about that too. Behind us, from across the yard, Talia's voice rises above the ambient cookout noise. Are they kissing again? Someone tell me if they're kissing again. I need to know if my work here is done. Caleb's voice, dry as ever. Do not encourage this. Gus, somewhere near the grill. About time. Jack looks at me. I look at him. The dock, the lake, the stars coming in one by one over Cedar Cove. Home, I say. Yeah, Jack says. Home. Thank you for listening to The Romance Bard. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can find out when our next tale releases.